Okay guys, in this video we're going to look at how we can just, given a point in polar coordinates, just go graph it essentially, especially if you don't have polar graphing grid next to you. And so looking at these, it says use a polar coordinate system like the one shown for exercises 1 through 10 to plot each point with a given polar coordinates. Well, if you do not have one of these sitting around, which looks like this little radar screen here, where each of these radial lines is one more unit away from the origin, then what we're going to have to do is just kind of represent it as best we can. So with respect to graphing these points here, number 11 looks like the point that we're given here is 2 units away from the origin in a 45-degree direction. So if I'm going to graph this, I know that I'm going to go 2 units away from the origin in the direction of a 45-degree angle because it's a positive 2. But essentially what you're going to have to do is kind of use the power of imagination here. If we know that this is kind of like the 45-degree radial arm here, basically what we tend to do, or what I tend to do, is just this. I just say, hey, 45 degrees, I'm going to go 2 away from the origin right here. And so what this looks like is I always draw on this little connecting line here from the point back to the pole. Essentially, we're just going to write here r equals 2. And so it's the cheater's way of doing this, but the one thing that we do definitely want to make sure we put on here is our angle here, 45 degrees. And so I'm going to write 45 degrees, if I can get it to fit here, 45 degrees. Now, as a matter of advice, this is all we would have to do to represent this point right here. But what I'm going to ask you to do is always, when you're done graphing the radial arm there and the direction angle, go ahead and drop an altitude back to the x-axis, because we're going to be doing a lot of right triangle trig with these types of graphing, okay, this polar coordinate system. So looking at something like, say, in number 15 next, this looks a little bit different. It's given in radians, so we say 3 and 4 pi thirds. Remember that a pi third, or a third of 180, is a 60-degree angle. So 4 pi thirds is 4 60-degree angles. Another way to think about this is, if this is 3 pi thirds to get over to pi here, and this is 6 pi thirds, then we are a third of the way rotation around this bottom half here. We're 4 pi thirds, and we're 3 units away. So like I've kind of mentioned in this last point here, I'm going to go ahead and just say that r is 3, as a matter of fact. And we're going to write our angle here. Our angle is 4 pi thirds, okay? And so as a matter of habit, of course, we're going to drop our altitude here and make sure that we get our right triangle in. But we can see that we're going in a 4 pi thirds direction angle, and that we're going 3 units away from the pole. Cheers.